Hi everyone, welcome back to the Vegan Ohioan. My name is Angie and today we have a guest on. Her name is Sara and she's going to talk about her line of work and also her expertise in yoga and her recent journey in sound therapy. So go ahead, take it off. Tell us about yourself, Sara.
Yeah. So, I'm Sara. I got started in yoga about 5 years ago. Free yoga event, never tried it before, and thought I'd give it a shot. I was kind of coming to a place in my personal journey where I wanted to find more movement in my life, but gym culture was a little too maybe obsessive for me, and didn't want that to turn into something negative.
Big burly, like men.
Well, and I knew like I was going to go for perfectionism to a degree that was going to be problematic, right?
Oh, okay.
And so I wanted to approach it in a way where I wanted it to be fun, and I wanted it to be healthy on like all accounts. And so I went to this event, was supposed to do something else that night, so it was really funny how it all aligned. And I just remember thinking, this is really cool. I'm thrilled with what my body can do. And at the end, I'm like, okay, I feel some kind of way that I like better than when I first got here. I had no idea this was possible. And it was just like a celebration, like here's a celebration of what your body can do. Here's something fun. It's almost like playing outside as a child.
Yeah.
So I was thrilled. I could hardly touch my toes. So for everybody who goes, oh, you have to be flexible. Nope.
Now can you touch your toes now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just.
That's after how long?
Yeah.
It probably took you a while to get to that point.
I was one of the lucky ones, but I still know people that are getting their 200, have gotten their 200 hours, have been teaching for a couple years. They still can't touch their toes. It's not about that. It's about what you learn on the way down.
Right.
And that was really it for me too. Was I looked back and I looked at different photos and I kind of caught how out of alignment I was, but there's no proper geometry there. It's what your body can do at that moment in time and accepting it for what it is.
Yeah.
But man, I fell down the rabbit hole. So, it was a big event. There were a lot of different tables, a lot of people networking. Actually, got to know two of the studios in the area, both of which, spoiler alert, I ended up teaching at. But the first one was where I started attending within like 2 weeks of this event. I mean, it all just snowballed real quick. So I started going, and you want to talk about obsessive, it still happened. It was sometimes 3 classes a night,
Wow.
but not all hardcore power, stand on your head type. Some of it was, I got introduced to power yoga basics, and to explain power yoga, it is a little more athletic. But then I discovered the practice of yin, which has 3 tenets, and you hold your postures for like 2 to 5 minutes. So you've got your movement, and you've got your stillness, and literally yin and yang, the harmony of the two.
Yeah.
So then they introduced some other fun things, like different resistance type training. They had a dance bar, so I tried the bar thing, which was really fun. Holy cow, I have no dance background, but it's not about that. It's the celebration, right?
Right.
Celebrating trying something new.
Yeah.
There was a class with like the little hand weights, and I was like, oh, this is cool, I got this. 2-pound weights, and I'm like, oh, I don't got this. So, it was just across the board, just trying everything they had to offer. And, I don't even remember. I got into it. They had like a monthly special, so I went hardcore for the first month. That was November. Okay, so then December hit, holiday specials happened. So then I ended up getting a 6-month thing for a really good rate. And then
like 6 months of class.
Yeah, unlimited. Just because if I would have had a quantity, I totally would have blown right through it. I was doing 3 classes a night. It was ridiculous. And I was commuting to get there too.
Yeah.
So it was worth it. It'd be cool because I would do like my post yoga decompression, on the way home, and like kind of meditate to myself. And what you start to learn on the mat is the way you talk to yourself on the mat is the way you talk to yourself not on the mat. Yeah. And I just, a lot of stuff was happening energetically. A lot of stuff was happening with my body, not necessarily physically. I don't feel like I've really changed sizes in the last 15 years. I'm very lucky that way. But definitely felt stronger, physically and emotionally in ways that I hadn't before. And I kept wanting to learn more and to learn more. And that 6 months blew through, because that's how time happens. It just does this thing called passing. And so I got the opportunity to look into getting my 200-hour certification, and the universe laughed at me because I thought, I don't care if I never teach, I just want to learn more.
Yeah.
And the universe is like, having its moment of like, girl, you are too much at public speaking, and you learn too quickly, and you're too much of a leader to not end up teaching.
Right.
But my ego wasn't into it at all. I genuinely was just like, what is this stuff about? Because when you're a tiny white girl from a small town in Ohio, and you're looking into learning about 1,000-year-old sacred ancient Indian practice based in, Sanskrit and all these different texts, you just, what is this? What is this really? Because when you hear yoga, a lot of people think like, oh, it's white girls wearing tight pants, and it's a workout, and it's not, it's a work in.
Yeah.
And
you probably realize that too. Like, during that 6-month special, you probably realized how like you said, you realized how your body was reacting to the way you were moving. And you're like, there's got to be a reason why this is a thing.
I'm like, I don't know what's happening, but I want to learn what's happening, right? Because, you can tell that there's shifting and there's changes, but it's like, I want to know what it is, which would have been my compulsion in the gym, right? So I took it a different way. That's how it went down. Because this magic, is occurring, and it's amazing, and I just want to learn more. Why do I feel so good in Shavasana? Why do I feel better when I leave the mat than when I'm on it? And, and then more too, I knew there were 8 limbs, I was, trying to Google what, so, yeah, Instagram does not help. Yeah, so, oh man, that's yoga? This is, I don't know, so I had to kind of distance myself from that and, really learn, what the personal journey meant to me. And so, it was 2017. Went through some big life changes, actually. Grieved for my first car, which I worked so hard. I worked 97-hour work weeks for 3 years to buy my first car outright. Just for all the people of YouTube, I was almost 25 by the time I got my license. It was a big deal. So I'm always I kind of get late to the game, but then I make up with mileage. And then my grandfather passed away in June, and I started my 200-hour journey July 14th.
Wow.
And he passed at the end of June. So this, it was wild. Buried my first car, buried my favorite grandparent, and then started my 200-hour journey. And I'm it's funny because, people dying isn't funny, but it's peculiar when you realize part of the practice is about non-possessiveness and the non-attachments. And so it was probably the cheapest grief therapy, even though it costs thousands of dollars to get your certification. I have a t-shirt that says yoga is cheaper than therapy, and I don't know because I'm looking into being a therapist now, but we'll see. I think both are very helpful.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was part of 16 people, which was really cool. It was life-changing. It was amazing to see how the journey unfolded in all of us. I came into it hot, because I think part of that was my bravado. That was maybe how my grief was manifesting at the time. I came into it hot because I was practicing constantly, and I was learning, we were learning kind of, and I don't say this to offend the place where I learned, but how to parrot what was being said. So we were learning how to teach what I was already taking, for hours and hours at a week. So I was I'm used to this. I hear it all the time, right? So I'm just kind of repeating what's being said. So I'm good here, I remember when we started going over the sequence and started learning how to recite the sequence, I remember blowing my instructor's mind because they were okay, we're going to talk about Sun A's, Surya Namaskar A series, which in the beginning of the practice is kind of like your awakening. You're just kind of getting the blood flowing, and in some capacity you come from the ground to a full stand, salute the sun, hey, how are you? And then you end up, bowing forward, and then ultimately, taking it back to the floor. You find a heart opener. In our case, in power yoga, that's Urdhva Mukha, upward facing dog. What's up, dog? Nothing. What's up with you? And then, you end up in your Adho Mukha Svanasana, your downward facing dog. So there's different variations of that, but ultimately it's your sun salutations, your awakening. Almost every style I've practiced has some variation of that.
Okay.
So we were learning that, and in our sequencing in our power class, we offered 3 different styles to kind of get you through that. And I just remember, like, people were kind of struggling, and I'm like, can I just? And she wasn't having it. She was like, there's like 15 other people here who don't know, who need to know, and that's proper leadership, is to let people find out for themselves. So I don't bash her for that, but then she had me explain the most difficult one. And so I did the thing, and I said it real loud, and I'll never forget her face, like, okay. And I remember thinking this is the first weekend, and I'm like, I'm in the right place. I made the right investment. This is the right thing to do. And then, we kind of continued to pursue, there's 8 limbs of the practice, and we really dove on the first 2, which are called yamas and niyamas. So you have your abstinences, your restraints, and your observances. And the idea is to gain your self-awareness and to practice self-disciplines. And, we've talked about this before, where you learn a thing, and then you come back to it in a different way, and then you've learned that thing, and then you come back to it again, and then it hits you like subconsciously on the next go, and then it's like these recurring lessons, because you're trying to build a new house with new bricks each time,
in your life, you hear something, and back then it didn't mean much to you, but you come across it again, and
you're like, that's what that thing meant,
right? And you're like, oh my gosh, and then like your whole life is like changed in like in that second.
Actually, and there was a big lesson for me in that, like right after I finished my 200 hours, I ended a 7-year relationship. I was working with a male teacher at the time who was not at all affiliated with my studio. I was just practicing anywhere and everywhere I could, and it was so beneficial to learn different styles from different people. His training was much more energetic. I was not on the level of understanding it at the time, so it was so cool. Because now I'm looking back at those experiences like, oh, this is why he did that, or this is why he said that. And I'm sure I'm thrilled to continue on my journey and still look back on that. Oh, that's why, it's going to be proverbial light bulbs all the time. But
I love that.
I remember working with him as I was, my life shifted in huge ways after, I got my certification. I relocated. I ended a really long relationship. I was, continuing this grieving process that had just begun. It's just the things were really aligning, because that's the magic that happens. And at some point during the training, you kind of realize, I don't choose the things that happen to me, but I can choose how I react to it. And I remember having this moment, wow, I can choose to feel this way, or I can choose to feel that way.
Right.
And I remember being at lunch with a couple people I was training with, and I said, hey, have you had this moment? And they're like, yeah, actually I really have. And it's funny because I just did a class last week, and they talk about how that's part of the Yoga Sutras.
That's cool.
You just get to this point of, evolving and having this point of view that you choose. You get to choose. We have the power of choice, more than we want to tell ourselves, more than we want to give credit for.
Right.
And it is about kind of knowing the difference. And so, anyway, back to my male instructor, who was just guiding me in big energy ways I had no clue about at the time. He kept telling me, like, you need to embrace your feminine energy. You need to embrace your feminine energy. I remember thinking, like, I don't know what that means. I had no clue what that meant. Like, I'm like, I hopefully I'll find out. Like, I was really I'm like, I didn't get it. He was beyond me, and I knew it, and he's like Master Oogway, and I'm, Shifu, and I'm trying to be the Kung Fu Panda and find out what the secret ingredient is, and that was the whole thing.
But you were there taking it in, like, you weren't, like, opposing yourself.
Oh, he said it too many times for me to forget it. Like, my short term was not going to drop this. You need to embrace your feminine. I'm like, oh, well, he means what he says, and, I don't want to disappoint him, right? I'm still working a little too much outside validation there. But, I knew the guy, I knew what he was talking about, and I knew I had no clue what I was doing, because I was humble enough at least to admit that.
Yeah.
We still don't. But, I don't know. I don't even remember what the timeline was, but funny enough, back to, Instagram, or, and knowing, coming into my planets were aligning, and people in my life were coming in who were more familiar with energy work, and could tell you how trauma stores in the body and what different energies meant. And obviously we learned about the chakras in our 200-hour class, and so I'm like masculine, feminine, I'm struggling here. And I was struggling. I just didn't even know to the extent. And I got into a lesson from multiple people, it seemed like, and I was processing it with one of my masotherapists, and it was about how masculine energy is based in decisive, action-oriented, success is an arbitrary term, but very, success-seeking, but don't...
goal-reaching.
Yeah, like just taking the action and implementing a daily practice, very disciplined.
Okay.
Because everybody has both. There's no gender stereotype here. But holy cow, right? Remember, I worked 3 jobs, got my first car, so I was a little out of balance, for sure. Making decisions. I made the decision to get my 200, I made the decision to pay the money. I made the decision to continue to commute. Like, I was constantly in action, I didn't know how not to be. Feminine energy is based in pure expression, creativity, they say fertility, and not in the sense of just being a baby factory, but just cultivating an expression and embracing the emotions, and, riding out the waves and the highs and lows, and giving yourself the compassion to go with it, the nurturing. And everybody has both. Everybody had both. But man, I put my creativity aside to go work and get things done and do the thing.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I had sacrificed so much of my creative energy to continue to do what I thought was being successful in a culture that says, yeah, work 3 jobs. That's cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
it's really, masculine energy has been like...
That's our society. It's very cultured. yeah, it definitely is. And we've talked about this too, like when you try to pursue your creative endeavors, how do you quantify that? How do you put money to it? And, and then that gets difficult too, like when you start teaching yoga, and it's a very spiritual practice, and you don't want to further perverse it, even though you already feel like you're coming into it with like, a little bit of a stain. And so... trying to put, money to that gets real confusing, but then at the same time, your time and your energy and your worth is worth something.
Right, yeah.
And it was, you and I had talked about, if you're bettering someone's life, if you're improving their quality in some capacity, it is worth quantifying.
Right, yes, exactly.
And that's been huge to, like, come back to that and remember... Yeah, it's okay. Like, I pay my massotherapist, I pay my hairdresser. She's a heck of a therapist. Like,
And
there's
even
still...
hairdressing is, like, a creative endeavor,
Oh,
too.
man. There's artwork and therapy, mixed into one. It's not easy. Not easy stuff.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is, like, there is a skill, that creativity isn't just... Well, you make art. Like, no, it's, it's food, it's cooking, it's, cultivating something that, garners conversation and makes opinions happen, and, you could make just about anything in art form, speaking and writing, and, it's amazing to me. People that work with their hands, I just think are incredible, because
it's so cool.
Good for you. Like, that's not my thing. I like to draw, I love to sing, I'm loud, I'm a slinger of words, but, man, you guys who are, making the jewelry, doing the crochet, good for you. That is an incredible skill set. So, So yeah, I remember that being the big lesson for me though, and it's still coming back to me. You know, years later, it's still coming back to me about masculine and feminine energy and trying to strike the balance. And now I'm like kind of playing armchair and observing others a little bit. But you got to check yourself. That's that's number one.
Yeah.
So yeah, pursued the 200, finished in December of 2017. 6 months later was like when everything shifted. Started teaching, started sharing the practice, had the opportunity to find my voice and, you know, what I wanted to cultivate as an instructor, you know, because it's different for everybody. You know, I've got incredible teachers that have this phenomenal dance background, and good for them. Like, they look like the Instagram people that intimidated me out of almost not doing it in the first place, which is funny because they are the most humble and loving people you know, of all time. But man, they're
you were when you were looking at them on Instagram. You were probably
like okay, that's not my body type. Because
you haven't done it yourself yet.
Right. And then,
now that you know what it is.
Yeah. And even like the sequencing and the way that they flow, and you know, some people, they come into it with their, I don't want to say sermon, but you know, they have a lesson. They give you kind of something to meditate on in the beginning, which is cool because it's nice to come to the mat. And some people need that to concentrate on. Like, give me my focal point, you know? Because we're busy all the time, right? We have that masculine-based society. We're go, 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 and do, 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 instead of being a human being. Like,
being present.
Yeah. So it's, you know, I think so highly of that. I kind of learned that, you know, I honor that the practice is your practice, and you as an individual, it's up to you to cultivate and discover the dialogue in your head. I don't want to muddy your water. And so when I started, you know, going for it, I started thinking about what postures resonated, like, with what areas energetically, and then what would be, like, a safe way to get somebody there. Like, if I have a goal for somebody, you know, to touch their toes in the next how many months, like, how do I cultivate the work to kind of get that going? Like, what forward folds do we take? But then, like, what heart openers do we take? Because, you know, there's always two sides, right? Like, it's always about the harmonious, you know, end result of, you know, making sure that, you know, everybody's got two sides. And so that was really fun for me, and learning more about how things resonated energetically kind of gave me something to play with and you know, help people maybe play with that dialogue in their head to have their moment of, oh, I could choose this way or I could choose that way. Right. And at the core of it all, the first restraint is called ahimsa, nonviolence. And then to me, that also translates to, like, kindness and compassion. And coming from, like, a very strong, like, powerful postured practice, it was really important for me to know how to sequence or how to verbalize my cues, because I didn't want to cause injury. You know, I came from this training that was pretty rigorous and fairly athletic, and I've known 2 people at least who've had to have shoulder surgery. Oh, wow. Yeah, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to be that. Right. You know, I'm like, I have this, like, you know, little yoga gym oath of do no harm. Right. You know, so that was really key. And then the other part of it too was to keep, you know, the compassion going so that someone's dialogue was not harmful. You know, and then I started catching myself, like, with, you know, when other women would say self-deprecating things, which is so prevalent, almost like to a subconscious. I think honestly, like, it's subconscious for some people. Yeah. Where they just they say these things, and I'm like, oh no, I'm not having that. Like, I have a zero tolerance policy for this. It's, like, it's very rare for me to turn into, you know, kind of a, like, word police, but it's true. And so this is a really nice way to transition into how I got into, like, learning a little bit more about sound therapy, because those vibrations reverberate in your body, and, you know, that's kind of like the frequency that you set for yourself. And, you know, back to the dialogue that you can choose, it comes down to the frequency that you can choose to operate on. Yeah. So I discovered sound therapy, I think during my training or, like, right before my training. Yeah.
Can you give us, like, a little, like, snippet about what sound therapy is?
Yeah.
Like, a little background, maybe?
So we have, you know, these different energetic centers in our body, and they all operate on these different vibrational frequencies. And so sound therapy, you know, to me, like, every sound has, you know, it's going to resonate in your body somehow on a cellular level. And I know that gets to it gets to sound real funny, but
But if you think about it,
I work in chemical dependency, people. I will pass a P test.
Yes. I was gonna say it makes sense though, because we, like, people who love music and listen to it all the time, like, you're looking for, if you want to be sad, you can find a song that'll make you feel sad.
Yeah.
If you want to be happy, you can find a song that'll make you feel happy.
Right. So my introduction to my first like sound therapy session though was at the studio. And these people, before they ended up with their own facility, which is amazing, they used to travel, and oh man, they travel with their big old, ding dong bowls, and and they make them sing, and my first experience, like, again, just this is the trend here. I have no idea. It sounds cool. Let's try it. And I remember, like, man, this is like a glorified nap of, I don't know, some people do fall asleep, and that's cool. It doesn't matter, because you're in the room, and, the energy's happening, the vibrations are there, and, it's nice to remember, like, your body really does do a lot of the work for you. It's highly resilient. It's incredibly made by design. It's really perfect the way that it is, however it is in that moment. And so, man, we could say that again. It's perfect however it is in that moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love
that. So we'll say it again, because sound therapy. My first experience was so amazing. I just remember seeing colors. I remember actually kind of having a couple muscle spasms. I don't know. Who knows? Everybody's experience is different. Is that your body's built perfectly by design. It's going to do whatever it needs to do. And I remember asking them questions. Like, well, is this normal? I'm seeing colors. Yeah, I don't know. And they were like, oh yeah, we were going to just tell everybody that that's, a totally normal thing. And all these different crystal quartz bowls and different, they have different metal bowls and the ting-tings and the ding-dongs, and, I'm not giving them enough credit. They have gongs and,
that's cool.
whoa.
Yeah.
It's interesting too, the more I learned about what they were offering, how, some of the crystal bowls would affect, the different chakra values and meridians and energy centers and chis, and would try to help, release some of this blocked energy. And the way they describe it, it's like an internal massage. And I'm like, oh, you have me a massage, I'm here for it, And I don't have to do anything, I don't have to meet a shape, or, okay, yeah, it's great, you get to be perfect as you are. And then the more I learned about, the different instruments and the different pitches, and, how it would resonate with, your lower chakra values and the lower nodes, all the way up to, your connection to your divine, your higher power, your creator, whatever that is. There's no specific, religion tied to it. It's really a personal journey. And, which is cool, right?
Yeah.
For you do it yourself.
Yes. All about DIY.
Yeah. The more I got to learn about it, and then I was like getting acupuncture done and getting body work done, and I was like, wow, there was way more to scratch the surface than I've even touched. And this is after, like, I finished the 200 hours. It's really just the beginning, to learn, like, how these energy centers have resonated, and, how your meridians can store and block or release, and how easy it is, too, to, like, retrain the body, or, like, kind of acknowledge, what's happening, and, like, process, like, we carry a lot, like, we've talked about shoulders.
Yeah,
we're like,
I always, like, text you and, like,
what does this mean?
Yeah, my hips hurt
and
today,
I do that to my
shoulders
people. Yeah, I'll be like, right hip, like, are we masculine, feminine? Is the sacral? Is it root? Like, what's going on? And it's like, oh no, it's actually your left shoulder is just like, yeah. Like, yeah, oh, wow. Yeah, you gotta have your people, right? Like, yes. This is who I text when I'm not sure, Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. And it's true, like, the way we talk to ourselves will resonate, inside the body too.
Because it's literally a vibration.
Yeah, and the things you say out loud, they really manifest that. And I've been a slinger of words for a long time, but I did not realize, like, how words really held power. And I didn't realize the power that I held as a slinger of words so, and the creativity that goes with that, and the more I've worked to embrace the feminine energy. I shouldn't sound like I'm sassing the guy who said that, but, the more I have worked to do that, the more I've realized, wow, there really is power in that creativity, like, beyond what I would have comprehended, at a different time in my life. And so it's really fascinating how all of that plays into it, right? Like the sound therapy sessions, and you're, specifically, seeking a vibration, but you're also manifesting your own, and the way that things will align with you, or the way that you'll align to what's around you, because you really do become aware and observant, and, maybe you don't always know it right off the bat, but all of a sudden it's like, man, I feel some kind of way. And it's funny, that gives me a bad vibe. It probably does.
Yeah.
And if it didn't because you said it did, now it does.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
You just self-fulfilled that prophecy.
Right. So when you're thinking about sound therapy, do you come to it from a place like, I want to feel this way, or I want to heal this part of me? Like, what's
curiosity
the goal?
versus ambition.
Okay.
For sure. And that's how I've approached my practice. That's how I approach, going to the people that I there is, it's a balance, and I say this too in my job in chemical dependency. It's a balance you have to strike between your own personal accountability and surrender. You have to know that you're not in control all the time. Like, there are forces greater than you, whatever you subscribe to, that are just in charge. You don't do the universe's job for the universe. Like, you are just a part of it, and you gotta approach it humbly, curiously versus ambitiously.
Okay.
But there is an accountability at work. Okay, my job is to try to be aware, and I'm aware of, this, that, and the other, but I'm kind of not sure what's causing it, or what it could be, or, maybe this is, I'm not going to pretend like I know if I'm not 100% sure. Your intuition might be correct, but if you're, making fear-based decisions, or you're thinking of stuff based in, past experiences, you're not going to be fully aligned, and that's where it's so good to have a support team, right? Why do my shoulders hurt, or what is going on here?
Right.
Hey, I need to take this time to just, be on the table, and, and literally just taking the good vibes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so just making that commitment, and this is again our balance of masculine and feminine energy. We took the action to, make time for healing. And so then we can kind of approach it like, oh, maybe that's what it was. I'm a big advocate for body work and acupuncture, and, taking a sound bath.
What is that? Exactly.
We get to lay on a cot, and people facilitate the different bowls. There's all kinds of different sizes. I finally bought my first one. I'm so excited. I got the heart chakra one, and it's appropriately green. And I've approached buying geodes and stoves the same way. They choose you. Okay, this feels right. Let's do it. And so they facilitate an entire. It's like a concert, if I could put it so boldly.
Cool.
You start off with a flute. I think I showed you the flute video.
I think so.
There are some really cool flutes out there, people. It's a little more grounding, which is interesting, because we kind of sequence yoga pretty similarly. We start in what's called integration, or, hey, welcome to your mat. This is the time. And then, it starts to move into, these different energy works, and the next thing you know, you might feel like you're floating. I mean, it's different for everybody, but your job is to just be there.
Yeah.
That's it.
Just exist.
Yeah, human being, not human doing,
Yes.
And it's really incredible because, results may vary. And, if you just approach it curiously, you'd be amazed what you might learn about yourself. I mean, I've had incredible, mental health breakthroughs on the cot, or on the mat,
cool.
yeah, depending on where I'm at. And, it's pretty neat. And then sometimes it's just nice to relax. You don't have to approach this with, well, I'm going to get this figured out. You don't need to set the precedent that way.
No expectations.
Exactly. Yeah, keeping that open mind of, this is a healing process, and I am exactly where I need to be in this moment. And I'm a big believer as a trauma survivor that, abuse is abuse, but healing is healing is healing. There's no one size fits all. And, it's just about knowing that every light casts a shadow and vice versa. Mm-hmm. And so it's really fascinating to me to have gone to, learning how to use my words to not cause harm in a physical way, to now I'm trying to choose my words wisely to help other people like integrate how they choose their words, you know, when I'm facilitating group sessions or working with people, you know, with the disease of addiction in my day job. And then ultimately, like, how is this going to evolve as I continue to gain my education and, you know, be this, like, yoga-informed ultimate trauma therapist, you know, which is a big goal, a lot of masculine energy there, but I'm trying to approach it as creatively as possible, and, you know.
I think just helping people itself is very feminine energy.
Oh, yeah, that's nurturing, right? That's very healing. It's like nurturing energy, and it is taxing. But not in a bad way, not like where, oh my gosh, I resent humankind. Like, we're all having this human experience, and we're just trying to, you know, metaphorically walk each other home. But it is so important that to be a fountain instead of an empty bucket, right? So to be the example, to be, you know, here I am doing my best self, taking care of myself so I can be of service to others. You know, you have to be self-fulfilling first. You have to make that commitment to, like, this is my self-care and this is my time, you know, instead of, well, I'm going to do this, this, and this, and then you wonder why you're a drained, empty bucket, and, and then your vibration is low, and it's like what is happening, you know?
Anybody that, like, asks you for help, you're just like, you hate them.
It does. It's ultimate, like, resentment cultivating. Big time, and then you don't you're seeking outside of yourself at that point because you weren't filling within, and when you realize, like, it's already all inside of you, right? Come back to Kung Fu Panda with me. We are the secret ingredient, you know. The secret ingredient is me. If I was adopted by a goose, but
I need to watch that movie.
Oh man, we should. I've had a crush on Jack Black forever.
He's so awesome.
You know, it's already within us. We just kind of get to experience our time, you know, on this planet in our, you know, human skin and bone bag. Just like uncovering or reintegrating ourselves and like coming back to the source of the vibration that we were kind of like always meant to operate on. You know, so it's fascinating stuff, and the key, I know of the key for me at least, and you know, I see two extremes constantly, especially in my line of work, but the key for me is to be compassionate throughout the process. Approach it curiously instead of ambitiously. Don't set the expectation of, well, I'm going to get, you know, these things accomplished. That's very attached before you even get started, and that's, you know, there's a possession there that just needs to be eliminated. You know, so that's where the surrender comes in. There are people on the flip side of that coin that need the accountability, that need the, you know, the little bit of a push, you know, and that's why it's beautiful that we're all getting to experience this, like, human thing, so we can kind of come together and learn from each other. You know, I see it all the time in my line of work, you know, people that are the escape artists because they're constantly trying to go and do and work, and you know, I work specifically with women, so we have this culture that kind of tells us that we're supposed to put ourselves last, and that self-care and selfishness are the same word, and they're not, you know. Sound therapy again, nope. Definitely not the same. So there, you know, there's the constantly working, almost too much masculine energy now, right? We're working, we're going, we're doing. And then there's the other side of it where it's complacent and isolated, and, you know, there's a guardedness either side of that coin, but, you know, the, like, non-moving, and that's, again, full circle to yoga. That's the beauty of having to know when to move and when to learn how to sit with yourself, because you got to be able to do both. So it's really fascinating stuff, you know, to kind of come into that in the human condition.
So what's your current position is, what's your, like, current title? Certification.
The certification is called CDCA, that stands for Chemical Dependency Counselor Assistant. So I did some credited hours through the state. The state acknowledged it, got a certification, and now I can, you know, they let me facilitate groups and you know, kind of work with people. It's effectively case management, so I try to set people up for success when they're done within their time in residential treatment. You know, try to motivate them one way or the other, and you know, it's really interesting now that I'm working in a facility that honors the 12 steps. because my background is yoga and holistic, and it's cool how much there's parallel about gaining that self-awareness, about the concept of surrender, about knowing when to move and when to sit with yourself. And it's really funny. My hair is delicious. I was hungry, I guess. It's really funny how like the yamas and the niyamas, your abstinences, your restraints, and your observances are all similar in this. We're just trying to gain awareness as a person and find that healing. It's super, it makes my heart so happy. I got to keep my ego in check about it. When people who have been through the process many times and worked through the steps before hear something from me, about the Yoga Sutras or about, the abstinences and restraints, and they go, I've never heard it this way before. Now it's hitting me in a new way, and I'm like, don't say that too much. I can't get into my pride here.
I was going to say, you even say, like, how you work with group sessions now. It reminds me of, like, how that translates to you teaching.
It really is, yeah. And I work with incredible therapists. They're awesome people, and they'll be like, man, you lead a good group. And I'm thinking, well, I've been doing public speaking for several years before I got into this. And instead of telling them how to bend and breathe, I'm just trying to tell them how to, get cool with the secret ingredient, like you're worth getting to know. I'm just here to motivate you because, I've done my own work, and, we're all just trying to do the thing together. And so I knew when I started this online coursework, which was all thanks to being laid off due to the pandemic, that this was clearly the right track, but the buck wasn't going to stop there. Yeah. I was doing these online videos, I was doing this training, and I'm like, I've had my finger on this pulse for like a decade. I've learned about the ACEs study. I'd learned about early childhood adverse experience study.
Okay.
Yeah, which, we could nerd out about it. That'd be a whole nother video.
We'll have you on next time.
Yeah, how about that? It started as an obesity study.
Oh.
Just so I'm telling you, this could be a whole other thing. Yes. Different documentaries that I had watched, different articles I had read, all of that for fun for over a decade. So I kind of knew coming into it, like, okay, if I can deal with the workload, like if I can deal with it, because it's all good in theory, right? Well, I learned these things, but when you're actually doing them and executing them and experiencing the emotional transaction of that person's energy, I knew going into it there was going to be a taxation, because you're coming into trying to heal people at their lowest. Yeah. With rock bottom is a real place.
Yeah.
And so
that's a lot of your fountain to give.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to keep that fountain charged.
Yes.
And so, and I had come from multiple job juggling, so it was really important that even though might not be the most fiscally rewarding field, you have to be energetically rewarded and reward yourself energetically. So I knew, like, second job, third job was not going to be anything other than self-care. There was not going to be, well, I'm going to juggle, this and that and have a no. Like, I'm going to have one full-time job, and that's it.
Yeah.
And then I started school. But I'm doing online coursework. It's, like one post and one assignment a week. It's not heavy. I'm doing gen ed classes right now, so I've noticed it's not really taxing me at the moment.
And could you tell everyone what your degree is?
Yeah, so I'm going to go for my bachelor's in psychology, and then ultimately, so I'm on a long road here, to get my master's in clinical counseling. So then the goal will be to be a licensed practicing counselor. And then with all that time served, not that I'm incarcerated, but, your CDCA licensure is kind of based on your hours. It really is kind of based on like time spent.
Yeah.
Funny enough, and so you can kind of, once you have so many hours accredited, and I'll be pursuing phase 2 here in a matter of months actually. After so many hours, and you can kind of test into your licensed chemical dependency counselor, which is what I'm currently assisting actually in this license.
Okay.
Yeah, and then. Once you attain a degree, you can have your associates or your bachelor's. You can actually test into different levels of the LCDC. So it's a really interesting how do I want to say it, evolution of licensures.
Yeah.
But it's really cool to me how there's a lot of it is just based on your hours of experience, which I kind of like because
yeah, I think that's important.
healthcare and healing is
yeah.
kind of funny. And when you have, these standardized tests, sometimes the test isn't about what the job actually is. It's like the very corporate version, and it's not really related to what you're actually doing.
Yes.
This doesn't totally feel like that. So yeah, it's really fascinating, fascinating stuff, and it's always exciting to me how many people who, like, by the time I'm seeing them, they've been through a lot. And, some are more ready to surrender than others, and that's human condition. It makes sense, when you get used to not having control of your life, you want control of your life, and so surrender can be really tough when you're just so desperate for just the idea that you're in charge. But it's knowing that, like, you really are. You can choose, like, how you talk to yourself. You can choose, to pick your battles effectively.
Right.
And
but to not, like, grasp so hard.
Yeah. Sometimes holding on is more harmful than letting go, right?
Yeah.
And it is. It's about, like, well, what are you holding on to? And it's fun when people are excited or they want to learn. Like, we have a yoga instructor who comes to our facility. It's not me.
Should be you.
Yeah. We have another yoga instructor who comes to our facility. She actually facilitates classes, 2 days a week. And it's so fun to actually talk to them, kind of similar to our conversations about, what they experience on the mat. Because she's there, she's incredible, and they get that hour, and then they're asking these questions after the hour. Well, I feel like this, or I feel like that, and then they don't realize that sometimes I can help answer that. Yeah. Sometimes I can. This is a very individual journey, so I'm not going to pretend like, well, I totally know the things. No, but if I can help, I'm here for it, and it's really fun to help people kind of process what they're going through while they experience that, on their journey of recovery, and try to give them a little bit more of an awareness throughout the entire experience. And it's a disease, and who you are as a human being is not the disease. And I've come to learn that in different facets of my life, mainly with work. I wasn't what I was doing for a living. I was me. I was Sarah. I just happened to do, I did a lot of things for a living at the same time there. But yeah, we get stuck in that, masculine-based, like, success-oriented, title-attached society. And so it's really amazing the abundance that can break through when you break free from that.
Yeah.
So
you find the balance.
Yeah. And then operating on that frequency, right? Like, I'm operating on this frequency of abundance. I'm setting the precedent that these things are already in my life and coming my way. Yes. And then they do. It's just amazing, like, the shifts that happen, when the dialogue in your head shifts. That's the thing that was a big theme for me. I don't remember what you were going to say before we checked the camera. I'm sorry.
Remember. It's okay.
Yeah. We were talking about frequencies and operating on abundance and operating.
Yeah, and how, like, when you believe that you can achieve what you want to achieve,
or
you can
the manifestation.
have what you want to have,
right?
Then it just, like, it's crazy how easy it comes to you.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as you just, like, believe.
Yeah.
No strings attached.
Right.
Nothing like that. So
yeah.
I just think that's really cool. I've been having a lot of that recently. So I've been, like, realizing that a
true testament of it.
Yes,
it's really happening.
Yes.
and then it's like, oh my gosh, I believe it more now.
Yes,
I have concrete evidence. Yeah. And and you're right about the attachments and the non-possessiveness of the titles, or as I like to call it, like, conditional praying or conditional manifestation, whatever you kind of want to, refer to that as. Words have power, choose them wisely. I was very based in control, right? And so for me, I'd be like, well, give me a sign, but only if it's this, that, and a bulleted list, that was itemized and maybe color-coded for all I know, because, hey, I'm an office nerd, what can I say? And I had to realize, like, that's not up to me. That's where the accountability and surrender have to balance out, because I wanted to be in control of, like, how my signs and abundance were going to come to me. That's not how it works.
I read recently in a book, it's actually over here. It's called Think and Grow Rich.
Oh, yeah.
Napoleon Hill. It's really good. You guys should check it out. But I read, like, it said opportunities usually come in the form of temporary defeats.
Yes.
And that was just, like mind-blowing.
Right.
Like, especially, like, in the chemical dependency field. Like, these people come to you probably after something bad happen.
Yeah, or after a lifetime of bad things happen,
Right.
seriously,
Yeah.
you know, or the highs and lows, truly, it's a roller coaster. And I was in group yesterday talking about how I quit smoking 10 years ago, and how I was cool until like the first year. How goofy is that, right? Like the first couple, I was like, no, I'm fine. You know, I told them I was running on like vengeance and spite. You know, I quit and I was going to stay quitted because I wanted my ex to know that I could quit and stop, you know, if that outside validation worked for a while. And then the first year hit, you know, and this was 10 years ago. So at the time, full-time beauty school, working midnights, full-time job. Here we go. Masculine energy was already starting. Yeah. And got kicked out of my house. You know, it just felt like everything was falling apart. And at the time, that is how it felt. But it turned out, ultimately, it was falling into a place for it to kind of fall apart again, for it to fall back into place. You know, it was an interesting kind of cycle. And that's kind of how it's going to go. It's how it's going to continue. Things are going to feel like they're falling apart, but really, like, your energy like needs to purge that stuff that no longer serves you. You know, when you continue to operate on a frequency, like, other things are going to either align or fall away. Right. And that's why, like, the non-possessiveness, the non-attachments are so pivotal. Otherwise, if you're going to cling to that, like, you're going to lower your vibration, you're going to lower the frequency that you're operating on, and then you're going to ask yourself questions that are just really not going to serve you in any capacity. And that's when we ask ourselves these things, well, why would that person say or do that, or why? And then you're trying to get control over things that you have absolutely no control over.
And also making assumptions about other people too that
are,
like, probably not based
and
in reality.
And you know what all of that comes from? Like, oh, I'm really busying myself and putting a lot of energy into why other people do and say what they do, or allowing myself to destroy my peace based on something somebody else did. Now I've stopped looking inward, and I've stopped healing inward, and the secret ingredient is like getting in the dumpster, and this is not good, you know. So you'll notice, like, where your focus goes is where your energy goes. And so having that is so key, you know. Instead of asking yourself, like, why is this happening to me, why are these things happening to me, you gotta have like two questions, like, am I doing something to cause this, and what can I do to handle it like a boss, you know?
Right. And I like how both of those questions are like, what can I do?
Yeah, because like, maybe there's nothing. Maybe there's nothing I did to cause this. Right. Maybe it just happened. Maybe it's happening because something is no longer serving, you know, my next level. You know, maybe I'm about to energetically level up here, and, you know, got to get that master sword on and drop the Kokori one, or, you know, like, maybe I got to get rid of that Deku stick or something. You know, it's time to upgrade my weaponry. Yeah, so I love the Zelda nerd. By the way, I never finished Ocarina of Time. Don't know. I just watched too many videos. But yeah, like, we really, you know, we're gonna be evolving and upgrading, you know, our levels, our, you know, metaphorical arsenal, so to speak, and, you know, that's gonna come a time where there's just, like, not room for the things that don't serve us in our life. You know, if we learned the lesson, it's like time to go.
Right.
You know,
I think that's a cool way to look at it too, because, like, if you have someone in your life that you keep coming back to, like, blaming them for things, then that's a good time to, like, step back and realize, maybe I'm growing out of this person, or maybe I'm growing out of this situation with them.
Yeah. Well, we could do a whole other series on relationships, like interpersonal relationships, interpersonal communication. Yeah, you know, honoring that your journey is yours and not somebody else's, and vice versa, because it's a lot, you know. I mean, because sometimes, like, you want someone to go on your journey with you, right? Yeah. Like, I was very that when I did my 200, you know, I was in what I thought was a committed relationship. I mean, we probably could have been committed, haha, mental health joke, but, you know, we really started to divide much sooner than before I pursued the 200, but, like, it was, like, the more I was coming into my own, and I was finding my voice in a lot of different ways. Like, back to sound, I was singing, and, you know, I was doing stuff professionally and trying to grow. Like, everything in my life was really evolving. It was just, like, that was a huge catalyst. Yeah. And, you know, I kept trying to tell him, like, you know, I need you on my level. Like, I need you to, like, take care of yourself. I need you to, you know, and it was, and he just was not having that, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, not everybody's ready at the same time.
Yeah.
And, you know, it just was not meant to work out, and that's great. You know, I wish everybody the best. You know, it was what it needed to be when it happened, and I had a lot of friendships that were exactly what I needed when I needed them,
Mm-hmm.
and then you kind of just, you know, you either align with the frequency, or eventually you just gotta, like, grow apart, and, you know, you just kind of wish for the best. But it's, yeah, you can't force somebody to do the work that you're doing. Like, they have to discover that for themselves. And it's actually really funny that I went through a lot of that in my personal life, big time, like family relationships, you know, relationships, friendships, right before I got into chemical dependency.
Wow.
You know, because you have to approach that similarly. And I tell my clients all the time, and I don't say it in a way to be mean, you know, I do want the best for them, and, you know, I bring it to the universe all the time, like, just, you know, I hope, you know, first of all, that everybody stays alive, because this is life or death, and that, you know, whatever's meant to unfold is going to happen in the most beautiful way. And, but I tell clients, I'm not personally responsible for your successes or your failures.
Right.
Everything that you do is on you.
Yes.
You know, if I can be a spiritual cheerleader, cool, I'm here for it.
Yes.
I'm totally here for it. I'll get the pom-poms out and everything. You know, if you need a little kick in the rear, cool. I gotta approach it with the ahimsa, the nonviolence, you know. But yeah, if you need a little bit more accountability, I'm here for that too. But you have to do the work. That's up to you. That's not up to me. You know, I mean, I have enough work ethic in me. If I was responsible for another human beyond myself, yeah, it probably would have worked out fine, but that's just not how it works. It's all a personal journey. You're going to learn the things that you need to at your time.
Right.
You know, thank goodness my guy, the feminine, you need to embrace your feminine energy. I'm so glad he knew that before he told me, so he could be compassionate enough to know I did not get that at the time at all.
Yeah.
You know, and now this lesson is reoccurring in my life, you know, in big ways, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is it, you know. and I'm hoping now I'm planting seeds in people that, you know, maybe they don't get it right now, and that's okay, or maybe they get it in one way, but they'll revisit it, and that means this too, you know, and then they'll revisit it again. Like, that's all we can do, is just try to plant seeds.
Right.
See what grows, you know. Some seeds aren't meant to take, and then the ones that do, you just hope the universe is going to unfold in a way better than we could even hope for.
Right.
So, and that's the abundance, right?
Yes.
So, yeah. We actually did a quote on that in group this past week.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Awesome.
That's a big thing, though. You could do a whole series on it.
Well, I think we're good for this video.
Oh, for
but
sure.
She'll come back.
Yeah.
Because we've already decided we have other things to talk about.
Apparently. We might have to, like, itemize list like we talked about not giving the universe.
Yeah.
So.
But thank you guys so much for watching.
Yeah,
it's
thanks
been so
everyone.
fun to have you on.
Yeah.
I love listening to you talk about your life journey and everything.
We the camera or not. These are always fulfilling conversations.
This is normal conversation happening, right?
Yeah, it's happening on the couch instead of the coffee shop, but it's a thing. Yeah.
All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you like it. Subscribe so you can see Sarah again.
I'm not on any social media, so this is the place you're going to find me.
Maybe a future podcast.
Yeah, who knows? We'll see. We'll just operate on that frequency of abundance and see what the universe unfolds. So, stay true to yourself and be your secret ingredient.
Yes. All right, guys. I'll see you soon.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Put me on a camera.